Okay, here we go. A lot of episodes to cover in a short space of time. Let's get started.
Perfect! We'll go shopping first.
But I brought stuff for Bug Budget!
Are we supposed to be learning something here? Cause this doesn't sound like compromising at all.
Yeah, you guys have nothing in common. How can you be friends?
Gillian M. Barrow's latest episode is another that's generally fun but uneven and forgettable. The premise of The Ending Friend asks how Rarity and Rainbow Dash have maintained a good friendship despite having little in the way of mutual interests. It's a somewhat intriguing storyline given that these two haven't led that many episodes together, but the question gets answered perfectly well in the first few minutes, and from there on everything that follows and shapes the conflict feels very contrived. Much like Non-Compete Clause, this feels like a story that might have been well suited in an early season, but this late into the show's run, it feels more dated than nostalgic. It certainly isn't terrible though. Scenes like Rarity and Rainbow Dash trying to understand and enjoy each other's interests provide some amusing moments, Starlight is utilised well in her supporting role, and despite its forced setup, seeing Rarity and Rainbow try to cooperate in finding a missing artifact and the eventual lesson they learn do make the episode worthwhile overall. Rather average but still perfectly watchable, The Ending Friend gets a Silver Star score of 5.
I absolutely know something. See? Good friends always work through their differences. Even if it takes a little help.
Are you sure we're talking about the same thing?
Phew! And that's with only a few days of practice! Can you believe it?
Yes, I can.
Written by the usually enjoyable Fox brothers, Yakety Sax may be a firm candidate for the worst episode of the season. Pinkie Pie falls into a deeply depressive mood after being told of her lack of ability to play a noisy instrument known as the ovidiphone. There's definitely potential with this story, it's a nice idea and has a good message behind it, but both are heavily hampered by terrible writing and direction. While they initially tried to be supportive of her new hobby, the rest of the main six eventually advised Pinkie to stop playing after showing no signs of improvement. She then disposes of the instrument, and in her depressive mood, eventually decides that she wants to leave Ponyville altogether and move to Yak-Yakistan. The return of Pinkamena Diane Pie should have worked well as an expression of her misery and uncertainty regarding her life purpose. But it doesn't. Pinkie's sudden decision to leave her home, friends, and entire life behind over a musical instrument that she only just started playing feels like way too much of an overreaction. When her friends meet her in Yak-Yakistan, they tell her that although she lacks skill with the ovidiphone, she shouldn't stop playing it as it makes her happy. This message itself isn't bad, but everything about its execution completely misfires. For starters, it forgets or ignores that Pinkie's playing in the first act was both obnoxious and extremely disruptive for many surrounding ponies. The other issue is that it disregards the ideas of encouragement and improvement. Pinkie laments that she isn't up there with the great ovidiphone players of Yak-Yakistan, and believes that she never will be. Now I get this, for about a year now I've been learning to play guitar, so I understand the feeling of starting out playing a musical instrument. It is both difficult and time consuming, and it can be very frustrating when you see how more experienced players make it look easy, but with patience, practice and perseverance you can be up there with them. That would have been a great lesson for the episode to convey and for Twilight and Friends to teach, and would have also served quite well as a way for them to make it up to Pinkie for not being more supportive or encouraging before. Instead, the episode ends with a cop-out conclusion where Pinkie is once again told that skill or ability with the ovidiphone isn't really that important. A handful of humorous moments, including a pretty funny scene with Maud, do pop up here on occasion, but for the most part, Yakety Sax simply Yakety sucks. I can only give it a Bronze Star score of 3.
And a 1.
And a 2.
And a you know what to do! In summer, winter, spring, and fall, we're friends throughout the year. For untold seasons yet to come, our friendship will be here. For 9 at least.
Oh, the bittersweet foreshadowing. Anyway, after a couple of mediocre episodes, Rosa Friendship marks the beginning of a big return to form for Season 8. The story focuses on Starlight and Trixie as they travel together on a magic show tour to Saddle Arabia, but being in close proximities for so long soon leads to tension. The script by Josh Haber really shines thanks to the dynamic between its leading pair. Starlight and Trixie just have terrific chemistry together in every scene. Whether it's during a stage performance, a musical number, or an argument, every interaction they share feels completely genuine. Speaking of music, their road trip song Friendship Bound is a greatly upbeat and catchy tune that complements their companionship perfectly, and is a strong contender for second best song of the season. I say second best because we still have this to come. While the altercations between the two are very believable, most of them are played for comedy, and as a result their arguing is much more humorous to watch than annoying. This dynamic is one that often feels wonderfully reminiscent of Steve Martin and the late John Candy from Planes, Trains and Automobiles. The only scene that really doesn't work is where Starlight trades away Trixie's wagon to another travelling magician without consulting her. I know that she may have thought she was doing them a favour, as being crammed in a small space was adding to the tension between them, but giving away your best friend's most treasured possession behind her back? And what's more, Starlight then tries to argue that Trixie's being ungrateful while she's crying. That's really over the line. Fortunately, Starlight does make amends by helping Trixie reclaim her wagon through performing a brilliantly awful improvised chant with her to prove their true friendship. Some viewers may be disappointed that we never actually see them make it to Saddle Arabia in the end, but in many cases a road trip is more about the journey than the destination, and overall, Road to Friendship is certainly a journey well worth taking. I'm going to give it a gold star score of 9.
You know, there's actually plenty of room in here for one pony nap. Is the show over?
I'd like to call to order the first ever meeting of the newest and most exciting club, of which I am the president, founding, and only member, the Washouts Fan Club!
Rainbow Dash becomes concerned when Scootaloo starts to idolize a trio of dangerous stunt performers known as the Washouts, especially after learning that the team is led by former Wonderbolts dropout Lightning Dust. Confalone's script is often very fun and intriguing, but where it really excels is with the wonderfully complex characterizations of its protagonists. When Rainbow first hears about her newfound love for the Washouts, her ego takes a hit and she worries that Scoot may no longer want to look up to her. Later, after Lightning Dust offers her a chance to try out performing with the group, Rainbow tries to deter Scootaloo from doing so, even enlisting the help of Spitfire, who contributes with a hilariously insane demotivational speech. It's certainly over the top, but still very funny to watch, and I imagine Kelly Metzger must have had a great time recording it. Given her history with Lightning Dust and the dangerous stunts she performs now, Rainbow's actions in this episode are out of concern for Scootaloo's safety, but at the same time her ego is still hurt from how Scoot is starting to favour the Washout over her and the Wonderbolts, and it's interesting to see how conflicted she seems to be with her motives. Scootaloo soon joins the Washouts though, despite Rainbow's objections, and her reasons why are actually pretty deep and meaningful. She now accepts that she can't fly and doesn't anticipate ever being able to, but she doesn't want to let it hold her back from achieving other options. Her decision to join the Washouts may be rebellious, but you can see and perhaps even relate to where she's coming from. This is what makes both Rainbow and Scootaloo intriguing and well written in this episode. Neither one is the bad guy, but they're not perfect either, and as the story is told from both perspectives, it's easy to understand what both of them are trying to say. The characterization of Lightning Dust, returning to the show after a 5-season absence, is a mixed bag though, particularly with its conclusion. Initially, Dust seems respectable. She's still a thrill-seeking daredevil, but she's now found a crowd-pleasing outlet for it. And while it is worrying that basic safety is not her number one concern, there are still some measures in place, and the Washouts still appear to be well in control of their stunts. But when preparing Scootaloo for her first trick with the team, she unexpectedly adds extra rockets and pressures her to do it without a safety check. It's here where her credibility completely plummets. Performing a potentially fatal stunt untested is one thing, but pushing a frightened Scootaloo into it regardless? That's just low. Fortunately, Rainbow flies in to save her, Lightning Dust goes blasting off again, and the episode rounds out with Dash giving Scootaloo her own fan club. While it doesn't quite earn the top score, the premise, message, and writing for its two main characters are enough for the Washouts to get a gold star score of 9.
You know,
Echo Dash was right. Eavesdropping on your own fan club isn't weird at all.
There's nothing you can't do with hard work. And the shovel!
Except maybe stand on stage.
Kaito Panbara's second episode proves to be one of Season 8's finest. After being removed from the excavation site that was once his home, Rockhoof worries that he's not suited to modern-day Equestria, so Twilight and friends all work together to help him find his new place. The script is frequently fun with a plentiful amount of humour throughout, but its greatest strength comes from the heart of its characters. One of the first and most notable aspects of this episode is that it marks the return of the Pillars of Equestria, and shows us how they have all adapted to a contemporary society vastly different to their own. Flash Magnus returns to military service as a drill sergeant, Mistmane grows beautiful crystal gardens, Somnambula is now a motivational speaker, which I think is inspired, while Mage Meadowbrook returns and expands her field of medicine, and Stygian, although never featured, is now a successful novelist. I was hoping to see each of the pillars get their own episode, but the way they are presented here is actually perfect. The episode provides enough time to show where they are now without ever feeling rushed or drawn out, and their appearances serve a key purpose to the narrative. Rockhoof is very likeable, and perhaps even painfully relatable here. Much as he tries to adapt to modern times, he just feels lost and out of place, and constantly puts himself down as a failure as a result. It even gets to the point where he decides that he wants to be turned into a statue, feeling that he's better off being preserved as a piece of ancient history. Yona is also brilliantly utilised in a much more substantial role than we've seen from her before. She idolises Rockhoof for his strength, fearlessness and captivating stories, but it's a wonderful scene in the third act that is most effective, when she explains that she knows what it's like to feel like an outsider in a different environment, but Rockhoof and her friend inspired her not to be afraid. I think many people, both young and old, can easily identify with how these characters feel and hopefully take something from the episode's conclusion. It definitely has one of the show's more inspiring morals, reminding viewers of the importance of not giving up on yourself and remembering that we all have a purpose. Often hilarious and heartwarming with a very resonating message, A Rockhoof and a Hard Place is another top tier entry in this season, and I'm giving it the special Golden Star score of 10.
Once there was a small yak that knew more than a great hero.
Hey! Don't forget the dragons in this one!
Aye, there were dragons, and ponies, and plenty of hippogriffs, plus a changeling and a griffin.
Should probably get back to studying for the test.
A test, yes. By sunrise, this door will be closed. Finish the test before then, and you may go. Fail the test, and here you will stay.
Mike Vogel continues Season 8's winning streak with another stellar episode. While studying for a history test, the young six discover a mysterious underground cave in the school library, and are suddenly forced to face their worst fears in order to escape. Much like the Hearth's Warming Club, What Lies Beneath is an episode that does an outstanding job focusing on and developing the young six both individually and as a group. While they haven't had nearly as many episodes this season as they should, their friendship has continuously grown in a wonderfully authentic way. The basic concept of facing your fears is certainly nothing new for the show, but Vogel's expertly written script makes this premise feel fresh and consistently engaging, an accomplishment made possible thanks to a brisk pace that maintains tension and urgency throughout, and fears that are very personal to the characters. As they wonder if friendship is truly within their nature, a strange sentient being that takes on Twilight's appearance places the students against their fears as a way of testing the strength of their friendship. This setup is fantastically executed, and further strengthened by how the students all help each other get through it. Although Gallus and Smolder have the chance to leave the cave early after passing their tests, they refuse to do so without their friends, and instead help Silverstream and Ocellus triumph against traumatic memories that have come back to haunt them. This is how What Lies Beneath manages to stand above similar stories. It isn't just about conquering your fears for yourself, it's also about doing so to provide loyalty, support and comfort for your friends as they fight to overcome theirs, effectively prioritizing their well-being above your own. And let's not forget about Cozy Glow, who tried to cause conflict between the students at the start of the episode, and after apologizing to them later, closes the story with an ending scene that adds more suspicion and mystery to her character. Another exceptionally well-crafted episode, and definitely one of the season's best. What Lies Beneath absolutely gets the special Golden Star score of 10.
We just learned a friendship lesson from a tree, didn't we?
'Cause rainbows won't light up the sky unless you let it rain, and candles just won't glow until they're burned.
If you're looking for an episode that disproves many beliefs that the show and fandom are running out of steam, I don't think there's an example more perfect than Sounds of Silence. After its premiere, the Kirin quickly became a fandom phenomenon, but how does the episode itself hold up? Given their instant popularity, they deserve a fantastic story to be introduced in, and that is exactly what they get. Written by Gregory Bonsignor in his debut for the show, Applejack and Fluttershy are called by the map once again, this time to solve a friendship problem involving a group of creatures known as Kirin, all but one of whom have been living their lives in silence. It's easy to see why the Kirin garnered immediate appeal. They have a beautiful design, and the script does a very impressive job showing them express character and personality with little more than emotionless stares and head tilts. Applejack and Fluttershy also work very well together again. Their contrasting ideas and ways of approaching the mission may result in some conflict and disagreements, but they both contribute strongly to solving the problem. These two may not team up very often, but they always make a great pair when they do. However, it's the lone talking Kirin, Autumn Blaze, that steals the show. Special guest star Rachel Bloom of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend fame does an impeccable job bringing her spirited character to life with an immense amount of enthusiasm and empathy, alongside some lengthy, quick-fire speeches and a brilliantly timed musical number. Rachel's performance comes so naturally that I have to wonder if she actually stayed on script for the entire episode, as much of her dialogue and delivery feels improvised. The aforementioned song, titled A Kirin Tale, definitely has to be the season's best. Besides being an incredibly lively and catchy tune with wonderful vocals, the cleverly written and structured lyrics do an amazing job explaining the history of the Kirin, how their permanent vow of silence affected Autumn Blaze on an emotional level, and the lesson that she's been trying to teach them ever since. It all adds up to a tremendous musical piece. And the message itself is an excellent one for both the characters and audience to learn, reminding them that anger is a natural emotion that's okay to feel sometimes, while also teaching the importance of learning to manage it and not letting it manage you. Another marvellously memorable addition to Season 8, Sounds of Silence also receives the special Golden Star score of 10.
Oh yes, 'cause rainbows won't light up the sky unless you let it.
Well, with 3 consecutive 10 out of 10 episodes and 2 9 out of 10 episodes before then, Season 8 is really on a roll. And with just one more to go now until the finale, let's see if it can keep it. Oh yeah.
Coming to Ponyville wasn't an accident. I was looking for you. Spike? I'm your father.
Sorry.
Now, to be fair, Father Knows Beast definitely isn't the worst episode of the season, but it might well be the most disappointing. Written by Josh Haber, the story follows a dragon named Sludge, who suddenly crash lands in Ponyville, and after being nursed back to health, claims to be Spike's father. The episode actually starts off pretty well, with Spike taking flying lessons from Twilight and then Smolder, which does a good job putting the story in motion. Sludge initially seems genuine too. He does show gratitude towards the ponies as they help him heal from his injury, and the backstory he shares about Spike and his parentage seems relatively convincing. But then the narrative starts to falter as the episode progresses and Sludge starts to appear less sincere, treating Spike more like a servant than a son, and trying to persuade him to abandon his entire life in Ponyville because he, in his own musical words, just can't be a dragon here. This ends up causing conflict between Spike and Twilight as he accuses her of being jealous because he has a real father now, and it's a heartbreaking scene to watch. Literally, you actually see Twilight's heart break when she hears that. Later, Smolder provides great support again for Spike as she tries to understand how Sludge has been treating him, which eventually leads to Sludge revealing that his whole act was a sham, and he only pretended to be Spike's dad to get a taste of luxurious life in Twilight's castle. This is easily the worst part of the episode. Taking advantage of Spike's hospitality is one thing, and walking in on Starlight taking a bath and throwing her out the window is another. But making the young dragon believe something positive about his family history, and then later revealing that it was all a lie? Not only is that completely reprehensible, it also doesn't feel that necessary. I think the narrative would have worked just as well, if not better, if Sludge actually were Spike's biological dad. If he had learned that this was his actual family history, it would certainly be tragic, but it might have further strengthened the episode's moral, which reminds viewers that family isn't always defined by blood, and sometimes having a best friend who feels like a loving parent or sibling to you is the better option. It may not be an original lesson for Spike, but it's still a terrifically heartwarming one nonetheless. This message, along with the aforementioned moments between Spike, Twilight and Smolder, are enough to make this worth a watch. It's just unfortunate that due to wasted potential and an unlikable guest, the compelling premise never amounts to the great episode it could have been. I'm gonna give Father Knows Beast a Silver Star score of 6.
I already know who my real family is.
Oh, it's me, right?
So those were my thoughts on all 8 of these episodes. As always, I'd love to know your opinions on any or all of them, so please be sure to let me know in the comments. On the next video, which I will hopefully get done in time before the Season 9 premiere, I will be concluding my Season 8 reviews with my thoughts on School Raise. Until then, thank you all as always for watching, and keep shining on, every pony!